It's split programming, though, because at the same time that these issues are being debated, that Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, is going on media saying that it's the Democrats' fault, you also have Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, going on Fox literally at the same time, saying that they're going to look at across-the-board layoffs, that the White House is using this as an excuse to fire people. Usually when these moments of tensions, when government shutdowns happen, people are just like, whatever, they'll figure it out. It won't have an impact. Is this time different, especially because of the fragility of the economy right now?
It's a little bit like Blazing Saddles. They've got a gun pointed at their own head. They're the chief executive officer of the country, right? They're going to need people to run the programs that reflect their priorities. So, the threat to fire people who would help them implement their agenda seems a little empty to me.
It does seem like just a threat, right? I mean, I know that President Trump has run time and again on shrinking the federal government, but it doesn't seem like this Republican Party really wants to shrink the federal government. Okay, they have 150,000 deferred resignations from the DOJ movement, but if they were really going to fire more federal workers, wouldn't they take advantage of this moment and do it? Rather than just threatening to do it time and time again. And we're going to do Democrat things, and it's going to be very bad, and not actually carrying through.
In the 1890s, there was a major civil service reform in the United States to prevent the kind of cronyism and patronage that previously prevailed. And so, they can threaten to do mass firings, but there are procedures that they have to go through that were enacted, 130 years ago and have been subsequently revised and amended. But, they can't just do this unilaterally. That's the problem the president is facing, is that he is eager to act unilaterally and show that, he's forcefully in charge. But it's a government of laws, not men.
Well, tell that to Clarence Thomas, right? I mean, he just recently said that he doesn't put a lot of faith in precedent. It could have been an orangutan making that decision.
That's right.
This Supreme Court seems eager to allow the president much more executive power.
No, there's no question about it. But notwithstanding that, the Congress has a role to pass budgets, to govern trade, right? I mean, so the president has, allegedly cut 8 or 9 deals with major countries on his universal tariffs. None of that's in writing. It's all press releases. He's allegedly got, a couple of $1 trillion of investment from these countries. Again, nothing's in writing, nothing's agreed. And why? Because the Court of International Trade, which has an original jurisdiction over the statute under which he's imposed these tariffs, has said he's exceeded his authority. That was appealed to the district court in D.C. They concurred in the International Trade Court's opinion. It's going to be heard at the Supreme Court on November 5th. This whole tariff regime that he's imposed could disappear with a Supreme Court decision. Now, as you've said, the Supreme Court seems eager to expand the powers of the president.
And we need that money.
But the powers of the president, in this case, derive from an act of Congress. And these kinds of tariffs have never been imposed under that act.
It's kind of this strange thing, because if you had said on April 2nd that these tariffs would be struck down by the courts, markets would have celebrated. This time around, anytime we've gotten an inkling, it is a bond market that sold off. It used to be inflation that concerned us about the tariffs. Now it's, we need this in order to cut the deficit.
Okay, so so go back to the one big beautiful bill. That we came into 2025 running a $1.7 trillion deficit. That's about 6% of GDP. So, when the government is deficit spending, it's goosing the economy. The one big beautiful bill, although, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, increases that deficit for sure, with the exception of the offset of the tariffs. But since the tariffs have not been enacted by Congress, it's not incorporated into the CBO's forecast, because it's unsure, the CBO, that these tariffs are actually enforceable. Bessent has claimed that at the current run rate, the tariffs will generate $300 billion of revenue in 2026. That will that might offset the incremental tax cuts that were incorporated in the one big, beautiful bill, but it's not going to close the deficit in any meaningful way. So that's why I think the bond market should be a little nervous about what the government is doing, because as Chair Powell has said, and I've said here before, the debt is sustainable at the level we're at, but the deficits are not. We cannot keep doing this.